Hey everyone, and welcome to May 2024. This is the energy forecast for it. And, today might just be setting you up for the month, or in a couple of months, it actually may be resonating with you in a couple of months. So this is almost timeless because it depends on where you are catching the energy wave. So some of you, like I've mentioned before, are at the forefront, and some of you have already gone through this energy, while others are going to be catching it, a few months behind. So wherever you fall within this energy wave, just understand that this is to support you. This is to assist you in understanding what you might be going through emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. So let's get into it. So for the past several months, I have done these readings, kind of like on the spot. And yesterday, it felt really important to just make sure that I had a really good feel on what was going on. And that just kind of makes a lot of sense considering that we're in Taurus energy. So I had to kind of feel into it a little bit differently than I would have in the past. So I'm going to be going off some of my notes to just kind of give you some insight into what the month is going to look like. But I just want to say, like, everybody who has been watching, thank you for supporting and just showing up and understanding that this is a very interesting time to be existing as a human being, and we're doing the best we can with the information that we have stored in our brains, stored in our body, stored in our soul consciousness. So to give yourself grace and patience for you know what is how you're responding to what is happening in your everyday, the day-to-day stuff. So that brings me to what May was about. And the overall feeling that I received about May is this energy of time is of the essence. So with Taurus, it's really interesting, right? Taurus energy is very tenacious. It's very stubborn. It's a workhorse, right? So when we're in this energy, it's impacting us all. It's getting us all to kind of, you know, look at life in a more practical way. And and so it was really interesting to see or feel this knowing that time is of the essence. Because when I think about, or not think about, what I was seeing was this energy of this really big mammal and was getting ready, like you could hear the hooves just getting ready to get going. And I saw its head down and just it's ready to work. It's ready, it's not messing around. It woke up, it's ready to get going. And it's gonna do what it's told to do, what it's shown to do, type of thing. So when I say time is of the essence, most live by the assumption that we have more time. I'm actually outside right now. It's a beautiful day, so you're going to be hearing probably airplanes and cars going by. I had to take advantage of this Arizona weather. It's not common where we can tolerate it at this time of the day, so I really had to take advantage of this time. But in any case, most of us assume that we have more time. And that isn't living in the present moment, right? So, one of the biggest educators from my viewpoint of presence is Eckhart Tolle. And the book, The Power of Now, is really a good read. Any one of my clients, when it comes up in a reading that they're living too far in the future or they're living too far in the past, that is a book that I really recommend for people. But in this one, it was really important. And I didn't even write that book down. It kind of just came out right now. But most live by assuming they have more time. And so they don't get up and they don't feel like they're inspired to check off their bucket list until maybe they start reaching like a crisis time in their life where they start feeling like, something is like when they're feeling like emotionally unsettled within themselves, then they start kind of getting like this itch, like, I gotta go. Or maybe when they're young, they want to go out and explore, but they don't have it in their mindset that time is of the essence because we have very little time here on earth. So this month, the collective mind shifts into awareness of this, into awareness of how little time we do have on earth. And it is a collective mind shift. So I want to preface that with get your emotions under control because when we have a propensity or a tendency that when we feel like we have very little time, we can get panicky. We can get very concerned and we go into that state of fear. Worry, anxiety, concern, those are all rooted in fear. And so when we get this wave of feeling like time is of the essence, depending on if you're a high strung person or, depending on your personality, I should just say, that it could impact you to a point where you can get panicky. And I want you to have awareness and understanding that this doesn't solely fall on your shoulders, but consider that we're all linked together. And if we are focusing on the fearful aspects, the panic, and all of that, it can tip us into the other part of polarity, which we want to be very mindful of. So I want to give you guys a disclaimer, right? So using that word assumption, and we all kind of know that phrasing, assuming makes an ass out of you and me. So no assuming here, right? That what I'm saying is a thought, it is a way of being. So when I say that, we're assuming that we have, or that most are assuming that we have little time. You know, it's not to say that, Earth is coming to an end, because what has been very interesting in observing thoughts and observing what's been floating in the mind space is understanding that people are thinking the world is coming to an end, right? When we're at the brink of war, when we're, I don't know if you have noticed it, but there have been thoughts in my mind that the world is coming to a certain point. And sometimes the phrasing is it's coming to an end. So I'm not saying that because, yes, although I have an ability to predict, I have never seen a prediction in my train of channeling that the world is coming to an end. So I want to make that very and abundantly clear. I am not saying that. So just to be aware that, we have to start, looking at things of how our emotions and our thoughts are programmed. Are they programmed to be more tipped in the direction of fear, or are they tipped into optimism, right? Now, I know traumas and all of that, so we don't have to get into that. But I want you to start becoming aware of how you are programmed. Okay, so so if you were to be in that assumption of fear, just understand that fear is a seductive. It's a very seductive energy. Okay, and so we can get into that energy very quickly. So it's really important to look at when I'm thinking such unhelpful thoughts. How can I adjust this into something optimistic? And so when you do that, you can get into the state of gratitude. And gratitude is the opposite of fear. It is so much more than we actually give it credit. So that's just something to be aware of, that this is the energy that is going to be moving in because the collective is shifting their perspective. So, okay, again, the little time we have on Earth, I want you to look at, or I'm encouraging you to consider, how are you taking responsibility for it, right? So this energy that we are tipping to be in this perspective of how am I using my time on Earth? If I have such little time, how am I using it, right? So practice gratitude for how you're choosing to live. So one quote that has popped up this week for me, which I thought was so profound, is something from Sigmund Freud, which is most people do not really want freedom because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. And so when you think about that, freedom can come in many forms, but let's think about being your own employer. Yes, you get certain freedoms from it, but you also get a lot of responsibility. And I've known many people who don't want to put the time, put the energy, put the work, like Taurus, the hard work in, the tenacious, stubborn work in to get to that final destination of being an employer because there's so much piled on. Even in relationships, sometimes we become dependent, and I'm not saying that this is possible, it's impossible. Everybody fit it to your situation. It's not meant to be judgmental. It's just to understand that in certain situations, there's freedoms and relationships and all of that, where if we were to consider leaving a relationship, our mind can get tipped into the possibility of, well, I don't know if I'm going to be financially stable. And so we got to put the work in. And so that is a sense of responsibility that we have to consider. Okay, now the bills are going to be all on me, right? And so some people don't want to do that. So they make the choice to stay in a toxic situation because it's easier to be in fight or flight in that relationship than it is to seek freedom and autonomy from it, because of all the other things. We got to look at the pros, the cons, the balances, and everything like that. So it was just really interesting that most people do not really want freedom because freedom involves responsibility. And when we think about the mindset, right? When we think about how this energy that is going to be shifting our perspective of we have little time here on earth, how are we using it? That is a level of responsibility, right? Accountability, forcing us to be accountable for our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions, because many aren't aware that we work like ants do. It's a collective mindset. And so we have to start considering that we're animals too, and animals work in packs. And if we're all thinking one way, not all of us, but, depending on the people we surround ourselves in or with, the environments we involve ourselves with, we entangle with, we're going to start shifting to that mentality. And so it can be very challenging. And so it's something to be aware of what you're encouraging in your life. Okay. So I just want you all to be very aware of that and understand that we do have a great responsibility here on earth and as a collective consciousness. And so how are we tipping the scale, or how are we tipping the boat on the river of the cosmic sea of consciousness? Okay. So that's just something to consider. So the other thing that came up, which is very much in alignment with this month, people are thinking and considering how they're spending their spiritual currency. So if you're watching this, you might already be aware that spiritual currency is electrical currency, like what ticks our heart, what gets us moving. Everything is electrical. So that's why we're supposed to go ground outside on Mother Earth, right? We ground to keep that current, flowing beautifully. And so when we're thinking about spiritual currency, then we think about, okay, well, that's an energetic field. And so then the mindset starts shifting to, wait a minute, that's what they're all saying? Okay, energy, right? It is an energy that somebody exudes, right? And so we start thinking about our electrical current. How are we spending that currency? So think about that when, it came up a while ago with a few readings. I even put a little blurb on my Instagram talking about spiritual currency and how we got to think about what we're investing. And so even when I say that, I want to say, like, how are you investing in yourself? Okay. That is a really big one, because again, with the theme of how am I spending my time? Time is energy, right? Our spiritual, it's a whole thing. So it's a whole connection. So look at how you're investing in yourself. Look at how you're investing into other things in your life. I almost want to say people, but it feels really interesting to pause on that one, because this is more of a self-reflective month. And the more you look at, how you're spending, we're going to be having epiphanies this month. And in those times of epiphany, which was really interesting. Sorry, it's windy and I'm getting things blown now, so I'm going to close this. So when we're thinking of the time of epiphany, it was funny. Somebody called me yesterday or the other day and was like, did you have any epiphanies lately? And I'm like, that was a really interesting question. I don't remember them ever asking me what that was or what that meant. So when they asked me, like, have you had any epiphanies today? I thought that was interesting, because this is the month of epiphanies, where people are going to start coming to of like, oh my God, this is what I've been doing. This is how I've been spending my time. This is how I've been spending my universal source energy. This is how I've been spending my spiritual currency. This is how I've been spending my time on earth. So once you get into that epiphany stage, and again, this could happen this month, you might have already had these, or you may have a different level or a different layer. And then those that are on the tail end of things, again, this is all a progression depending on where we're at on the ascension line. Okay. And so you might be having epiphanies this month. And when those epiphanies comes, you're going to be going into a plan of action. Okay, enough's enough. Like, it doesn't matter if you're in your 20s. It doesn't matter if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. This is going to be impacting you on different layers and different levels in your life. And so you're going to be taking a plan of action. And so May has the energy of slow, methodical energy, just like the bull. So instead of allowing yourself to get into that seductive energy, right? That seduction of fear of like, oh my God, I don't have enough time. Like I've wasted all these years. Absolutely not. Every time I do a reading and somebody has that concern, what always comes in is that there is no such thing as wasted time. Think about everything that you've learned up until this point, how it has assisted you, how it has educated you. Some people tell me stuff like, well, I haven't even gone and seen the world. Well, you've got to look at how has your experiences here been any different than in any other country, right? Yes, we'll have different visuals, we'll have different experiences, absolutely, we'll gain more knowledge and all of that stuff. And at the core of it, what are you learning? Are you learning that people are still capable of love? Are you learning that? And I pause on that. That is one thing that people are still searching for. And that is really interesting that comes through because they're still searching for what is love. And I did a little video just last week about that song, What is Love? Baby, don't hurt me. So it's people are still on the pursuit of happiness, but what they're looking for truly is the vibration and the frequency, the energy, the essence of what love is. Love is freedom. And so when we look at this, right, it kind of comes together where love is free. And when we have freedom, we've got to have responsibility and self accountability for that. And so, how are we, like looking at it, how it all kind of comes together? Okay. So, I just want you to be thinking about that. And so, again, kind of going down my list of stuff, this massive animal, the bull, has its stubbornness, its ability to be a hard worker. And so it's going to help us to really look at how we want to move forward in our life, getting an action plan, getting a step-by-step process. How can we be more self-efficient? How can we be more self-efficient? How can we be more accountable to our own needs, our own wants, our own attitudes, our own values, so that we come into every environment with that presence of self-ownership. Instead of ownership from others, it's self-ownership. I own myself, sovereignty. I know my ways, I know who I am, I know what I want to do, I know where I'm going, and I own myself. You know, um, that is really a profound understanding of what to be in. And so many people have given that away. And this is where we come into our own power, where we start recognizing, having these epiphanies. And then what I also saw was this bull as it's trekking its way through this, plowing or, through the farmer's, grove and all of that stuff. I saw that it kind of like heard a ding or whatever, and it wakes up and it's wondering where it's at. And that's when we come into Gemini energy. And Gemini gets us to be more intelligent. It gets us to be more, I just see more of an awareness and an awakening. I see this bull looking around, and this bull is looking around, and it's just like, wow, look at all the planning I've done. Look at all the work I did. And then we come into self-gratitude for, okay, I did pretty good. Now it's time to put things more into action type of thing. So it's really just working with your own energy, your own intelligence, so on and so forth. So things to be aware of this month is how you're utilizing that stubborn energy. So everybody's capable of being stubborn, some more than others, depending on how much fixed sign you have in your energetic field and your personality, because we have all the signs. So, could you have more of an emphasis on the fixed signs like Taurus, Aquarius, Leo, and Scorpio? You could have more of an emphasis, thus you could be a little bit more stubborn than others. Doesn't matter. How are you using that stubbornness? What areas of your life are you using that stubbornness? And can you consider that if I'm part of this ant mindset, this collective mindset, or this animal pack mindset, how can I stay in my own energy and be influential with my own thoughts and my own perspectives of being in optimism? Okay. Being in pronoia versus paranoia. So I'm not going to go into pronoia. You can look into that. But how can we be more about like the universe is working with me, or more of, again, optimism, right? So then we want to look at how will you choose to inspire just by being in your own energy and tipping that scale, tipping that boat to being more positive mindset, collective mindset. We are doing this together. Row the boat, row the boat, row the boat. So, in a lot of, not a lot, but in occult understanding, that the children's story about row, row, row your boat was about one individual rowing their own boat. But because we are now in a very different paradigm, we are understanding that the collective is working together, and we are together, we are one. And so now I see this row team, or even like on a pirate or a sailor's ship, we are rowing together, row, row, row. So when we are working together, how beautiful and how smoothly we can get through the cosmic seas. So into 2027, when the world becomes very different. Now, yes, we are in the time of difference for the world. But 2027 has an electrifying energy. So, can we work together? How do we work together through the occult, through that which is hidden, through the esoteric knowledge? So we're looking at how to work in energy and row, keep the mindset positive, focus ahead, be here, but understand we've got to work this together. So that is pretty much the information that I received. But I do want to leave you with this. That, we are in a time of emotional war, and it is truly a war within ourselves because nobody wants to take responsibility. And I shouldn't say nobody, but many are struggling to take self accountability, self responsibility. And so they're at war within themselves. And I believe I mentioned that maybe 2 months ago, last month, I can't remember. But this is again an opportunity to work together and come into unison within ourselves and understand that when we stop going back and forth on the seesaw of emotions and we stabilize, we empower the collective. And so consider this, that Taurus is productive energy, Gemini is intelligent energy, and the higher mind is higher vibrational love. And so this is what came through yesterday when I was doing this. It says, be enlightened through your choices and notice how that positive thought impacts those around you. So when you are capable of being aware of our negative thinking and we tip the scale to be more optimistic, right? We look at how the universe is working for us. We can impact those around us just by the energy that we are holding and we are harnessing. Okay, so I just want to leave you with that. And yeah, I really look forward to seeing how actually June is going to impact us because I see it's really interesting how I see kind of Cupid arrows. So we'll look at that in a time, and I'm kind of curious as to why I even wanted to say that. But yeah, so I wish you all a beautiful month and be gentle with yourself and, write down how positive you utilized the past several years, even if it came with its challenges. What did you learn about yourself? My love to you. Take care.